Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods for round 9 of the 2023 season. In this episode, we go over Freo and how they gave the Swans and us fans a dose of reality as our injury curse continues. In this episode, the wonderful Jules and I bring some realistic optimism to the table, so fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
Swans!
Okay, Swans fans, I welcome back to the schedule before her curfew to provide us with some breakthroughs. Welcome back, Jules.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. Great to be back.
Good. Always happy to have you here. And just before we kick into the main thing, I want to ask everyone out there who listens to the potty to make sure you like and subscribe or follow on whatever medium that you see us in. It does make a big difference to our podcast. I've mentioned before that there's very limited good Swans content out there, so make sure to support your provider of Swans information wherever they are. So thank you for that, and thank you to the ones that have already. We do see that and very much appreciate it. So on to the game details. Last Saturday, our Sydney Swans were defeated by the Fremantle Dockers by 17 points with a final score of 13-8-86 to 16-7-103. So, Jules, please take it away. What were your first impressions?
Well, Steve-O said in the preview to this game that if we didn't get up against Freo, that it was going to be a somber chat. So here we are.
We are here.
Yeah. So, look, that game felt like a tipping point for both sides who were pretty equally poised going in. But we were the ones on the losing side of the ledger, and we've now registered 6 defeats from our last 7 games, slipping down the ladder to 14th place. So things could be better, I think, is probably the simplest way of putting it. Yeah,
you're not wrong. I've got next to me what I can only describe as a schooner of red wine to get through this chat. It is a somber chat, but what I want to just request of everyone out there that's listening in is that we're going to take this opportunity, as we said in the intro, for a bit of realistic optimism. As you mentioned, there's injuries. We've slipped off down the ladder, and we lost against some teams that we should have beaten. Now, it's an opportunity for us to kind of just get through it, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
Let's just talk it through. Let's be open. Remember, fans, we all love the Bloods, so we're allowed to support them in any way we see. So, mate, one thing that I want to just point out quickly, and it's something that I felt was kind of telling of the situation, is that on the way after the game, on the way out, we're in the tunnel and the chase just outside of where the boys would walk out of on their way out to the Hall of Industries. And we did notice that Hayward was coming out, and when he was coming out, he was in absolute hysterics. Like he was in tears. He wasn't crying at the time, but you could see that he was pent up. His body language was really rough. He was like hunched over. His hands was in his chest. He looked like an absolute shell. Devastated, yeah. Exactly. So they're hurting, right? We know that they care about every bit of this. And so just to kind of acknowledge for a second there that the effort in the last few weeks have been superb. We haven't got it done on the scoreboard, but the boys are doing as best as they can right now. So let's just get into a bit of that. As we're moving down, Jules, good, bad stats, things that you saw, what things that you want to kind of flag out for the game?
Yeah, look, I just want to reiterate what you've just said. I mean, as we've seen the last few weeks, we've been basically cleaned out of our tools. The defence has been wiped out for a few weeks, and we're running on empty, in the forward line now as well. So there was some fantastic work done by a lot of our young guns. I mean, 2 particular call-outs that I'm sure we'll get into later, being Errol and Chad particularly. We were pretty soundly beaten by bigger bodies all over the ground, but there were quite a number of those sort of shining lights, particularly coming from our young guns.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. Chatty and Gordon, as we'll get through in the Bob medal, were superb. And there was light. There was, we saw some really good moments from Heaney. We saw some great moments from Francis, and we'll get into a bit of that. But all in all, if we look at the rough side of the ledger, we were beaten pretty soundly in the centre, definitely for clearances, stoppages. I can just kind of quickly go over them. I think it was 55 to 29 hit-outs in their way. So Darcy had an absolute field day with Hickey coming back from injury. Tore Jesus, everyone was excited about having Jesus back. But
yeah, he didn't turn
quite
water
resurrect.
into wine, unfortunately.
No, that's my job to do that right now. But clearances, they were up plus 13, center clearances plus 11. So just really not a convincing game from the centers there. Darcy just kind of had an absolute field day, and that kind of allowed them to just run with it, didn't it? Like it felt like they were sometimes just walking through the center.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, look, Darcy, far out. He is a sensational player. And to have the luxury of a ruckman like that who, absolutely dominated the hit-outs, to then have Luke Jackson be able to swing up forward, have 3 goals of his own, 6 score involvements. I mean, our poor defenders, like they just had absolutely no chance when you see massive Luke Jackson coming towards you like that. So the effort was certainly there, but those 2 big men had an absolute day out for Freo.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing that I kind of noticed as well, their pressure was really good, especially on the outside. And we were run down. I think I lost count. I'd say like 8 or 10 times would be my guess.
I tried to count and I couldn't keep up with it. And I was thinking, is that an awareness thing? Is that teammates not calling out, or not knowing how long? You've got the amount of rundowns, and then not to mention, the ones that just their disposal was affected, by the pressure. I think both sides for a lot of the game actually had the elite pressure rating again. So the effort was certainly there, but Freo brought it big time.
Yeah, and like I started trying to count them and started writing them down, but I kind of gave up a while. And these are the names that I wrote down, and these are names you wouldn't imagine would get run down because they're some of the quicker guys and the guys that use their feet pretty well. Ollie, Papley, Lloyd, Fox. Those were the consecutive rundowns that I saw before I just kind of gave up and got frustrated at watching it. Those guys arguably don't really get caught. So they weren't, I don't know whether it's an awareness thing, as you said, or it definitely wasn't their teammates screaming it out because the rest of the crowd bloody well was. So I don't know what happened there for them to have not that awareness, but it was pretty frustrating. It was pretty frustrating to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, the other thing that I was kind of frustrated at, and I think it's been a little bit of a thing on our season, was the just dropping it on the heads of our forwards, and we just aren't designed that way. And it seemed like they had a bit of a field day. We weren't able to get it to ground a lot of the time in order to make anything of it. Papley's been really dangerous in the ground in his career, as you can imagine. Knocking on the ground, he picks it up, as I said last week, like a velociraptor. He's freaking onto it. But yeah, he's not himself, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. We suspect there's some injuries there.
Yeah, well, it was interesting actually because Fremantle started like that, and then they hit the reset button on their entries into their forward 50 because they actually had we were soundly beaten in the inside 50s, particularly in the first quarter, and they didn't make it count, but they heard whatever the coach was telling them. And came back and started to deliver it, much more cleanly and sensibly into their forward 50, which we unfortunately didn't adjust to, which was a real shame because when you've got Buddy Franklin there waiting and he's struggling and you're delivering it to him like that, you're not exactly giving him every opportunity. So it was a shame.
Yeah, definitely. And just to point out your point there, marks inside 50. 12 for them, 6 for us.
Yeah, ouch.
Only 6 inside 50 marks. That's not great at all. And our season average is about 11. So just well down, well down.
Yeah, delivery is everything. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, especially when you don't have forwards that are really firing off.
Exactly.
It's pretty bloody well important. So I don't know. Where do we take it from here? I mean, let's try to get something going on here. What were your favorite moments of the game?
Well, we looked really good early, really lively. Logan McDonald had that sensational opening goal of the game. What was amazing actually was he brought the ball to ground initially in a 2-on-1 aerial contest before then jumping to his feet, sprinting inside 50, and then Buddy kicking it to him beautifully, as Buddy does.
Yeah.
That was a real highlight, and unfortunate, to see Logan go down pretty soon after that, but really showed what he's capable of, and just that game awareness, to bring it to ground, and to give that second bite of the cherry, so to speak. There were a couple of really good minutes leading into third quarter time, mostly inspired by Errol's brilliance. But with a couple of minutes left in the quarter, Warner made this unbelievable tackle on Luke Jackson. No mean feat, given the size differential.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Yeah.
Huge. And then Errol picks it up and goals from 45 metres out. And then, with seconds left, sort of a minute after that, Heaney's then snap goal, shrugging tackles left and right to get the team within 17 points and in touching distance, realistically, at the last break. So that couple of big highlights for me.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember those spots. They were getting people up basically. There was another one where we had some really good inside 50 pressure, and I can't remember who it was that dropped it, but someone from Freo basically dropped it just because their head was up because there's three freaking guys surrounding them, and dropped the ball, and in one foul swoop it bounced. Rowie grabbed it and got it on his boot in a step, and then kicked it right down the middle for his goal. And that was
beautiful.
Awesome. And that's, I think, if I'm recollecting, I think that's the third time this season that Rowie's been on the end of good forward pressure.
Yeah.
Just been in the right place. I mean, I love Rowie, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I just continue to see him just being in the right places and doing really good things just around the ground and just being in the right positioning.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's no coincidence, right? It's good footy smarts. And he certainly seems to have that, which is hugely promising. Yeah.
I want to get into probably the most important thing that happened at the game, which was the Wiggles at halftime. Wiggles were apparently... The Wiggles were playing. Steve-O was very excited about it all the way from Finland.
Yeah, I heard his 5 minute. I thought, is he an agent or a representative of these guys or something? The sell was on big time.
We got to question his allegiance, but he, look, they were there. And the kids were happy.
Yeah.
So we had a few of the kids around us. Parents were bringing them in, especially for a Saturday day game, including a baby O'Donnell from the O'Donnell family. They were pretty cute. They were cool. But I think on a general sense, outside of the Wiggles playing and getting the crowd into it, I don't know what it was in the rest of the SCG, and I'd like for someone to tell me, but definitely in the O'Reilly stand where we were, I can only describe the crowd as being dry toast.
Ooh.
There was no excitement, no energy. There was not a whole lot going on. And I say this with love. I say this with love, O'Reilly stand, because I know how much you can get into it, and I can appreciate that as soon as we got the word that Millsy was out, the season hoodoo, season hoodoo continued, and there was none in it. And we've got some fantastic fans around us. Don't get me wrong. We know them. They're lovely. I'm probably listening today, and I can totally appreciate why they were feeling pretty dry, but it was a very somber affair even during the game. And I don't think that worked too much for the team.
No, and it was a fairly decent crowd too. I was watching from home, but it looked like sort of 3/4 full. Was that about right?
Yeah, 29,000.
Yeah, okay.
So that's not a bad crowd. It's
pretty
for
good.
Saturday for sure.
Yeah. So just they were all there, but they're for the Wiggles maybe.
yeah. It's hard for a 2-year-old to make too much noise outside of wanting food, right? So
that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, I also want to kind of address one thing. I don't know, Jules, if you're paying too much attention to social media generally.
I've gone off it in the last couple of weeks, funnily enough.
Yeah,
I don't know why that might be. I value my mental health too much, I think.
you're not doing yourselves any disservice, I'll tell you that. But the Swans fans out there are fighting on the streets.
They're angry.
Yeah.
And they're angry at
punching each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've forgotten that we support the same team.
On. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, there's a few. I think there's a few unfair targets as well in all of that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that then. Horse. There's a lot of people calling for his head.
Again.
What do you see that? Again. How do you think about it? What are you saying?
It's easy. It's easy to blame him, isn't it? He's not on the field, right? And he's the man behind the curtain, I guess. And when you had a lot of expectation going into the season, which we all did, and we find ourselves in this position where we're 3-6, and we're now 2 wins off the 8 and 4 wins off the 4, the top 4. I guess, we need to find someone to put some of that blame onto. And the coach, is often that person. I don't think it's fair. I'm usually a pretty big defender of Horse. I think he's a magnificent coach and has proven his worth, over a really long period of time. And I think, we've missed finals twice in his reign. Yep. Possibly this year we will. But, he's got an unbelievable record, and he can only move around the magnets that he's got, and no one could foresee what's happened to us from an injury perspective this year. And he's doing his best with the list that he's got, and right. I'm a big defender. So
yeah. I agree with all the points you said there. Let's list out some of the names that Horse is missing from the team. Amati, Laddams for this week. Granted, probably a rest. We don't know. So Amati, Laddams, Paddy McCartan, of course, Tommy McCartan, Logan McDonald now, Callum Mills, Dane Rampy, Sam Reid, and Matty Roberts. So you're effectively looking at a half of the starting 22 are injured.
Yeah.
What do you expect a coach to do with that? And these aren't small names. And McCartans and Rampy and Millsy now.
Yeah.
But let's just start off with those two, the McCartans and Rampy, is the bedrock of the team's defense and what we've been famous for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, what magnets do you want to swing?
Well, and these are structural players, right? As you say, these are key position players, and then now we're looking at obviously probably our most important and our best player in Mills. I mean, we've only had one of our 3 captains, out now. It's only Mills. Sorry, not Mills. It's only Parker. No, we haven't had Rampy for weeks, and now we've got obviously Mills is out. So you just look at the captaincy perspective. We're lacking leadership, we're lacking structure, and unfortunately our better players are some of the ones that are going to not just 1 or 2 week injuries, but to fairly significant long-term injuries. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, so Swans fans out there, the term on the social media has been, in quotations, a true fan, right? I want everyone out there to just please stop using that term, okay? If you disagree with something, I would, if we met each other and we decided to have a discussion about whether Horse was the right coach for us or not, I would make my point, you would make yours. But neither of us can be deemed as not a true supporter because we hold a particular position. So just be nice out there. It's a toxic environment, social media, at the best of times. And just remember that we're all supporting the same team and we're all trying to find angles to try to get to an endpoint, which is to try to find a reason within ourselves as to why we're losing. We're going through what we're dealing as a denial phase. Okay. So we're in the mix of that. So and we're in the anger stage
well
right
and
now.
Truly, I think, in the anger stage.
Deep in the anger stage, right? So just be nice to each other, recognize that you can have different views and you can argue different points to get to the same endpoint or whatever. And we're all in it together and we all love the team and we just all want the same thing. And that's just to kind of come to grips with the way the team is going. But I personally, Jules, I'm quite optimistic about where we are. I look at that injury list that we just spoke about a second ago and just went through the names there. I can give a good reason as to why we haven't been as competitive this year as we wanted to. And I'm not blaming the GF hoodoo on it at all. I know that it's the injuries that have done it.
Yeah.
So especially in those key spots.
No, really, really, really well said. And I'm super optimistic about the second half of our year. Look, I think we're going to have a tough run, to the bye. But that week off is going to come at a really good time. And we'll rally the troops and we'll start the second half of our season full of optimism for what's to come.
Yeah, 100%. Dan from Did the Swans Win, who has a Twitter page, account, I will say page, shows how much of a boomer I am. Not quite there yet, but Dan from Did the Swans Win is very optimistic. He suggests that we've got a good, strong chance of still making finals. It depends on what the middle 8 or middle 6 churn themselves up a little bit, and we win. Keep in touch with a couple of sneaky wins amongst the way. Get some of these players back from injury. You never know what can happen. And I appreciate that optimism. And I think that's a really good standpoint of where he is. And I don't disagree at all. But I'm a little bit more on the pessimistic side at the moment of let's swing some magnets. Let's find some position for players. And we'll get to that in maybe the post game in a second. All right. So let's get stuck back into the game again for the Bob medal. It is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. And we give 3, 2, 1 points to the best Swans player in each game, with the highest points this week receiving, I'm trying to think.
Wiggles tickets. Come on.
Done.
It's got to be.
Wiggles season tickets. Does that exist? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know what
front row Wiggles tickets.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I think the players might have heard you and Steve-O talking last week that the winner got, what was that, foul canned fish?
I can't remember how to pronounce it.
And didn't even really bother. So now that we've got Wiggles tickets on the table, this is big. This is big time.
I mean, Hickey's got like 3 kids. He might be just throwing himself at the contest for this week. Some Wiggles tickets, mate. Like,
that's right.
No one's giving a Hickey free Wiggles tickets, I don't know what's going on over there at Swans HQ. But, well, okay. So Wiggles tickets for this week. 3, 2, 1 points go to 3 for Gordon, 2 for Warner, and 1, it's either going to be Rowie or Parker. And Jules and I are going to battle it out to work out which one gets the 1 point. But for now, let's get straight into Gordon. Jules, what did you see from Gordon's game?
Errol. Showing the football world why he is not just a future superstar of the competition, but possibly even a superstar of the competition. He was epic in another loss, tallying 39 disposals, 77% efficiency, again using his lethal boot with 24 kicks, 8 clearances, which I'm pretty sure was a Swans high.
I think it was, yeah.
7 inside 50s, 2 great goals. He also, did all the hard work too, 5 tackles and 634 metres gained. And just to put the cherry on top, he almost single-handedly kept us in the contest in the third quarter with 15 touches, and he got those 2 goals in that quarter as well. So massive.
Massive game. I did run you astray. He came second for clearances, only to the amazing Rowie, which we'll get into in a second.
Okay.
But 8 clearances amongst all the other stats that you mentioned there. Far out. Like, Gordon has kicked himself into the limelight, hasn't he? Like,
big time. Yeah, he's there. And he's 20 years old, right? 20?
Yeah, he's 20 years old.
And he's doing it in a losing side.
Yes.
Like, talk about leadership. honestly, it's I think everyone's in love with Errol at the moment. So he is. If Swans fans want a reason to smile, Errol Goulden is your reason.
100%, 100%. And just to add a little bit more into why we should love Errol, one of our correspondents, Noddy's brother, Nugget, was actually coming out of the stadium, saw Errol, and just had a good chat to him. And from everything that Nugget said, he says like Errol was an absolute gentleman, really, really honest about where it stood, and was just a really lovely, lovely guy on the way out. And so if you wanted another reason to love him, it turns out in person he's also super, super nice, super lovely, just really well grounded as you'd imagine him to be.
Yeah.
So
well done, Errol.
Yeah, well done, Errol. His parents run a fish and chip shop, I understand, around Sydney. So that's something to consider. We could do our Christmas party there. But
well, his mum is also a very handy coach. In the female Swans team. So he comes from pretty fine pedigree. So maybe we need more of Errol's mum around, possibly.
Do you reckon she could lace up?
I reckon, yeah.
At this point, we'll take it.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the second week in a row where Errol's just like, I mean, he's been good all season, but this is definitely the second.
He's lit it up. Like he was well and above our best player, well and truly. And look, I think he missed out on the coaches' votes of, obviously to the two big men, I think it was, for Freo. But, God, like as I said, in a losing game to stand out like that, Can't say enough about him.
Can't say enough about Gordon. He is. At what point do we just give him the captaincy? Like, is it next year?
Well, there will be a spot. We think maybe, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what Ramps does with his future. But I don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Although the only one thing would just be the pressure element. You know what I mean? Possibly, maybe Brownlow first. Then captaincy. No pressure.
No pressure, Errol. No pressure. But I mean, he is the darling, the absolute apple in the eye of Swans fans.
Absolutely.
Amongst a lot of other players, granted, but he is truly lifted. Pretty happy to see. All right, and moving on to 2 points for Chad, the Pineapple Head Warner. Jules, you want to take it away with his game there?
Yeah, pretty solid game from Chad. I think we've got high expectations of him. But no, he was really, really solid. 25 disposals, 4 clearances, 13 contested possessions, 7 tackles, which we can confirm was a team high.
Yep.
Which is huge. And still not hitting the scoreboard. One behind and 2 score involvements. But I noticed he spent a lot of time in the defensive half.
Right.
Quite a bit. Okay. His little heat map that I looked at, he was quite a bit there. And that obviously explains the 7 tackles, I guess, and 380 metres gained. So he also, did a lot to move the ball forward as well. So really good game from Chad again.
Yeah, love it. He is. I think he kind of started off a little bit slow, I guess, but now he's starting to get going. He's had really consistent games, doing what Chad does. He's not quite the explosive run out of the centres that he was last year. I don't know whether it's because he's put on some muscle, or just whatever. Maybe he's a bit sore. I don't know, but he's finding different ways to impact the game. And so that's kind of for me really exciting because if adversity is going to do one or two things. It's going to either make the team go down. It's either going to make someone feel that they've kind of like they can't progress, or they're going to find a different way to compete. And it looks like definitely for guys like Rowie last year when he just decided to play onto his tackle pressure, Warner this year where he's decided to do like a more rounded game, and Gordon where he's kind of doing a bit more defensive as well, and then just so happened to get the ball and doing his fantastic thing. That kind of adversity and people working them out and then trying to change up their game and learning more skills and applying it at AFL level, far out. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, realistic optimism. We are realistically in a really bad place in the ladder, but don't say nothing about these young players. They are looking very sharp.
Seriously, and with Mills, being out for an extended period, these two are going to be needed more than ever. So
100%.
let's get behind them. Yeah.
Yep. Fantastic. All right, now we go to the 1 point. The contest begins. We got ourselves row bottom in my corner, and we've got Parker in Jules's corner. So before we start the discussion, I wasn't going to say fight, discussion, pick a side and let's see where we end up. Jules, do you want to flip the coin? Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
Look, I'll say my bit about Luke Parker. Again, always sets the bar so high. So I think I say this every time, but I think we take what he does for granted because he just does it week in, week out. 27 disposals, 74% efficiency, 2 tackles, which is a little bit down perhaps on his usual, but still a good effort. 13 contested possessions, 6 clearances, a goal, assist, and 4 score involvements, and 409 metres gained. So pretty good effort from Lukey Parker.
Pretty good week out. I will say that. I'm an enormous Luke Parker fan. I will back this up for my buddy Rowie, and I know the James Rowbottom fan club out there is big and strong. I would just say 23 disposals for Rowie, 5 tackles versus the 2 from Luke Parker.
Yeah.
4 inside 50s and 9 clearances, which was best on ground. Equal best on ground with Sean Darcy, of course, who absolutely dominated that. So both players deserving of a lot of love. And just to put it into some, I don't know, some, what do you say, like some basic perspective, the what do they call it, the fantasy points or whatever.
Oh yeah, the AFL fantasy rankings.
99 versus 99 for Rory, 101 by Luke Parker. So basically, match to match when they start
splitting hairs, really, isn't it? A little bit.
Hairs.
Yeah.
What do you reckon? I am more than happy to go down the path of Parker because I felt he had a really good game, and I feel bad for Rowie, but he's got some time to shine definitely in the future. So let's for this week give the 1 point to Parker, and I'll come back harder, faster, bigger, stronger for Rowie for next time, if that's fair.
Okay. All right.
Done.
Deal.
All right. All right. Any special mentions? Any notable mentions of players out there?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention Jake Lloyd.
Yeah.
Again, just doing what he does. He was really solid on a really difficult day, being in the back 6. 24 disposals at 88% efficiency. Yep. So really, really strong. And he kicked a goal too, which is rare for Jake Lloyd on a day where goals were harder to come by, and 457 metres gained. So, he sent the ball too. So big honourable mention for him for mine. And I've also mentioned Heaney as well. I think he's been one of the players mentioned by fans and by particular media outlets, basically saying that he's really fallen from his All-Australian status of last year. And look, he has had a tough start to the year, but he's doing what he can, I think, and really showing a lot of effort. 18 disposals for him, and those 2 really critical goals, which came. He actually kicked the last goal of the 3rd term and the first goal of the 4th, which were absolutely critical. Put us back in the contest.
Made us believe.
Made us have just that little glimmer that we might get there. And I think you mentioned it as well, 4 inside 50 tackles.
That's right. And considering we only had 9 for the game for the entire team, Heaney effectively with half of those, you cannot question his effort. His effort was there. All right. So he's been a bit of the whipping boy, and rightly so. At the beginning of the season, he really was off. But for this last couple of games, maybe 3 or 4 games, he's definitely turning it on. Is he the Heaney, the AA Heaney that we've had other years? No. But I still think he's doing a really, really good job. And we probably do need to find ways to get him more of the ball. He went quite deep into the forward line for the second half. in particular the last quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, we just couldn't get some proper entries in there to make much of a difference. But it is what it is. So yeah, love Heaney. I still continue to back him up. There's some people calling for him to be dropped. I'm like,
come on.
Come on. Like, do you know how different the VFL is?
Like, and for who, might I ask as well?
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point that we're going to get into in the next section. Like, who follows up? I will give an honourable mention to we were talking about off air, Francis, Aaron Francis in the team. He's been playing forward in the VFL this whole season, and he came in at forward when Amati went out to just fill in the spot basically. But it's quite clear that he's very natural in the back line.
Oh, yeah.
He looks great.
He does.
Looks really good. Yep. 7-1 percenters, which I think was best on ground. It was second only to Will Gould. 10 intercepts, which was best on ground, and 2 contested marks. So Francis, look, I'm a big fan of Francis. I got really excited when we signed him. We had some Bombers fans message us to say we weren't using him properly. Good luck with him. He's actually a decent player. So I got quite excited about it. I'm not saying Reedy swingman. What I'm saying is that he's got the capacity to impact a contest at the right time when it's in the air. And I saw that many, many times this week. He went up there 2-on-1, put hands on it, got it to ground, spoiled the contest, made sure that he just made an impact in the contest that went our way every time he got in the air and he was close to it. That is something that we've not been able to do outside of a Hickey and a Reedy. So I saw that in Francis and I got quite excited. So the more time we see him on the field, the more natural he might start getting, the more he might realize the structure of the team.
Yeah.
I'm excited about Francis.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And he's come in, when the team's been in a bit of state of flux, right, in terms of the structural makeup. And he's just had to kind of fit in, where he's been asked to. And I 100% agree with you. I think he's more naturally suited to that sort of key defender. And showing a huge amount of promise there as well. So I agree.
Yeah, beauty. There's plenty, like Superfan Sam is not a fan of Francis at all. And when we were walking out of the stadium, by the time I got out, I think I convinced him.
Okay.
I think I got him around to be like, he's not a forward dude. He's a backman. He's just had to play forward. And when he's in the back, he plays okay. And I was explaining all these stats and stuff, and he was just like, all right, fine. I'm not saying that he's a worse player. I'll just say that, he's on the brink. And I don't disagree. I think he's on the brink, but he's doing a job for us.
Well, and I tell you what, I think all of us are glad that we recruited him because, we need him at the moment. So, yeah. Yeah.
I will take one more notable. I felt McInerney is back to a decent game. I liked what I saw from him the last 2 weeks, playing a support role, getting around, trying to get some possessions. He only had the 17 possessions, but those wingmen, they had to work pretty damn hard in defense to try to get some of those, especially when it's going against us. 3-1 percenters. How many? 3 scoring involvements. I felt that he was pretty good. Definitely not close to the top 3, but in the second tier, I felt that his effort was there, and last week it was as well.
Yeah.
So quick mention to Jussie.
I think it was Brady, wasn't saying that he felt like his speed had dropped off a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I feel like it was a little bit back on Saturday. I don't know. He seemed to burst, a bit more than what he has done. I think that sort of, do we call it a drop when they dropped him for a week? Was possibly a disciplinary thing. I don't really know because it was a bit. I found it a bit strange that they dropped him, but he seems to have whatever he did for that week. Going back to the twos and getting back to some basics. I think it helped because I agree with you. He's showing really positive signs, and that sort of lightning quick speed that we're used to seeing from him is starting to come back.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's get straight because I think there's some injuries being carried amongst the team as well. So let's get straight into the post-game. Post-game is when to get into the MRO and injuries and some replacements if we have any. So straight off the bat, let's get into the injuries. Millsy, we got confirmed yesterday that he's out for anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And Logan McDonald, the jumbo jet, he's out for what looks like 8 weeks, so 2 whole months. Well, that really just continues the curse, hey, Jules? Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah. We were joking. We were joking before about when Freo activated their tactical sub. We're like, "What's a tactical?"
That sounds
sub?
like a really good idea, eh?
Wow, that sounds like a massive luxury.
Hang on, you don't. Okay, let me just. The concept is beyond me. Are you allowed to like fill in a player without them having to be horrifically injured?
Yeah, apparently
What?
apparently it doesn't always happen within the first 5 minutes. You have to make a forced substitute. But
So you're saying like Paddy McCartan coming out didn't necessarily have to be a thing.
Yeah.
Tommy McCartan coming out didn't necessarily have to be a thing. You're saying Millsy coming
No.
out, Logan coming out, all these things.
Yeah, no, you can have this thing called a tactical sub.
Far
And
out.
sometimes you might even bring on Nat 2-time Brownlow Fife in to just add a bit of spice in the fourth quarter.
I've heard that guy's pretty good.
How fun, right? How luxurious.
Oh my
I
God.
don't think Swans fans know what a tactical sub is, but there you go. That's apparently what it is.
Yeah, tactical sub seems to be lost in our freaking vernacular this year. It's not something we're allowed to have, as it turns out. Football gods don't like that. So yeah, I mean, we just talk about our injuries. Like you were saying that before we started, that it seems like the team is trying to outdo each other, right? Like,
yeah, it was like Mills. Oh, I'm going to injure my calf and be around, I don't know, a month to 6 weeks on the sidelines with a grade 2 strain. Logan was like, hold my beer.
watch this ankle go.
Inwards. Yeah. I'm going to do an inwards medial ankle sprain and possibly be out for 2 months.
Oh my God.
Ouch. Yep. And I think you sort of called it as well. What Horse was saying in the post-match press conference was a little concerning, that there are a number of players carrying injuries they wouldn't normally be playing through, but we're kind of forced to do that, which is a little bit alarming if you're averaging 2 players going down a week, but you've also got players out there that shouldn't be out there.
It just really bothers me that you said averaging 2 players out a week, and I'm like, yeah, that's about right. I'm like, I did the math in my head. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. That's not great. Oh my God. Yes, look, all word is that like Heaney, Papley, Haywood, Blakey are all carrying injuries. Sheether's still working on bone bruising at the same time. So, and if you just watch the game, like Buddy's hamstrings don't work anymore. He doesn't bend over. So I mean, even if you have to play with the players off the pitch, you've got a bunch of players on the pitch that are still quite injured that we are just having to get playing. I think you mentioned that Horse was saying if it wasn't for all the injuries we had, we'd give some of these guys a rest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
I mean, none of that's going to happen because we don't have players to replace them with, which really gets us into the next part, which is there's been a lot of people calling for heads, right? Everyone's like, oh, Heaney needs to be dropped. Haywood needs to be dropped. Buddy needs to be dropped. Here's a question for everyone out there. Who do you replace him with? Have you been watching our VFL team?
Have you been? Yeah. We're 0-6 in the VFL, right?
Yes, we are.
And did we only kick 4 goals in the whole game?
Yes.
I've written down 4-10.
Yeah. And remember, we're missing our number 1 forward in the VFL, which is Aaron Francis. Right? Yes. Who was our highest goal scorer before he left. That's the kind of team we're playing with. So if we just plan it out a little bit, let's lay out what's happened in the last 12 months. We let go of guys like Ronke. We let go of guys like Bell. O'Regan retired. Callum Sinclair retired. These are the Lewis. I said it again. Lewis Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah,
a lot of the depth players.
That's right.
Yeah, I recall Steve-O bringing this up quite a number of weeks ago, saying there are alarm bells all over our depth, and this, unfortunately, we've been asking a lot, of the people, coming up through the ranks, and we're realising that many there. And so, yeah, for the people that are calling for some of these players to be replaced, if you've got any ideas, please send them through.
Yeah, send them straight to the club because they also want to know.
That's right. The positive thing was that Wicks was back in the VFL.
Yeah, Wixie's back, the absolute unit
back.
that he is. I mean, there's quite a few names here that people mention that could come in, but you also need to understand these guys are very young. So like Stretch McAndrew, like he is exciting. He's doing very, very well as a ruckman in the VFL. 22 years old, 209 centimeters, over 100 kilos. He looks the goods, but he's also a 22-year-old who's had no AFL experience, and I think he's in his first year of AFL. So, so he is not quite there yet. Hugo Kahan, HHK, 19-year-old in his first season as well. So, and you've got really people who we can actually bring into the team that have had AFL experience. You got names like this. Lewis Melican would be the first name you would throw out there. And he's had, as we know, plenty of AFL experience, looking very good. Him and Alia were fighting for his position for a little while there, and Alia went on to win All Australian.
It's hard to believe that now, isn't it?
Remember those days? Yeah. That happened. And the other name that we throw in there that's had some AFL experience, ready? Corey Warner, 1 game, right? So, I mean, Sheldrick, 2 games, okay? That's the kind of people that we're working with here. We're not dealing with a lot of talent let me rephrase. We definitely have talent. These kids have talent, but they're very, very young. They're very, very green.
We don't have the mature talent.
That's right. Wixie is the other guy that we can throw in there. Definitely have plenty of AFL experience.
And Dill Stevens, I guess.
And Dill Stevens, of course.
Pretty big chance of coming back, you'd expect. Although Gus Sheldrick was probably the best on.
Definitely.
Wasn't he? Yeah.
So I think the Gus bus probably comes into this. I would love to see the Gus bus come into the centres. I want to see. He's renowned for just throwing his head over the ball. He's kind of like a Hanbury or a type kind of thing. Like he would just get in there, riff out the ball, get it on the outside, and then like puff his way out to the next contest. Love it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him actually apply his craft at an AFL level. And I suggest that probably against North, that we're going to talk about in a second.
Not a bad time.
Maybe a good time
to give it a crack. Yeah.
I mean, what have we got to lose at this point? Like, we're going to have to blood these guys in their positions eventually. And I guess that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you reckon? Is there any positions, any places of players that might be worth just dropping for the sake of giving them a rest, or just to trial some things out? Or
I don't know if there's anybody that I'd necessarily drop. I mean, whether or not, we haven't obviously really heard what the injury toll is any further than Mills and Jumbo at this stage. But if some of them are sore, depending on what the injury is, I mean, I'm inclined to give players a rest this week if needs be. What I would love to see is more of Will Hayward up forward. He's actually a semi-key position player, in my opinion, and he takes a damn good mark, and he's a good kick for goal, and he's actually kicked on a few occasions multiple goals.
Yep.
I don't know quite what was up with Will, on the game on Saturday, and I think he took an early knock to his elbow. From memory, but I think more of Will Hayward. I think we can get a lot more out of Will Hayward. So him forward for me would be something that I'd want to see.
Yep. Yeah, love it.
The other call out that Luke Hodge made around Buddy is, and I'm pretty sure he already is playing further up the ground as it is, but giving him more of a go on the wing to get him into it.
Yeah, I find that interesting. That's an interesting point because I don't think Buddy's problem is, I mean, he's good. He's a great field kick and he knows how to go get the ball, but I don't think he can run anymore. I think that's a big part about being a winger. Like,
yeah. Well, I think it's more around getting him around some of the stoppages because he's a big body.
Yeah.
and he can tackle, and just, I suppose sort of, trying to get him around it a bit more, and not all the time have him on the wing, but just in patches. Just sort of moving him around a bit. I don't think any of us have the answers, but just a few of the ideas being thrown around. But I agree with you, pace is difficult, so it'd have to be circumstantial, I think, around when you do it.
I mean, Noddy's been talking for Buddy to go into the ruck for a couple of years.
I know. I've always laughed and said, you don't send a Lamborghini in to plough the fields.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
We're not Noddy. We're not saying you're wrong. We're saying
and maybe he's not a Lamborghini anymore.
That could be. Maybe ploughing the field is what you do with a 20-year-old Lamborghini.
With a 36-year-old key forward. Yeah. Look, I'm open to experimenting with Lance, around where he goes, because he does still have a lot to offer, and I think it's just more around being smart.
Yeah.
About around where he goes. So.
I think it's funny with Buddy, like even when he's playing not his best, and I mean the service inside 50 was the bigger issue, and he just got outdone by some of the guys there, just taking better contested marks, and that's not his game, right? But even when he's not at his best, he's still freaking dangerous, right?
Oh, big time. He still takes the number one defender.
Yeah.
The number one defender every time. And nobody expected when he went around again this year that we were going to lose key forwards like we have, and he was basically going to be the lone one standing,
I mean,
which he is.
One of the KPIs we had in the pregame, the preseason chat, was the KPI for the Swans is to limit Buddy's time, only utilize him for the right matchups, injuries, look up, just sort him out, make sure he gets in front of the crowds when he needs to, and that's it. But we wanted to see Logan as being the key guy. We didn't have that luxury, I'm afraid, this year. Like the one game we saw when we played the Hawks in that VFL team that they threw out there, when we had Logan and Amati kick 9 goals on them to outscore the whole Hawks team, that was fun. But I mean, that was Hawks also. But Buddy wasn't on the pitch, and that's what I wanted to see. I want to see less of Buddy in the forward line. We didn't have that luxury this year.
Yeah, so, this was never what we had planned.
No,
and I don't think this is what he signed up for either.
No,
thinking that he'd go around again.
That is a really good point. I don't think he signed up to be part of a team that's just being held together with some sticky tape. So
yeah, exactly. And his clanger, unfortunately, has been
my God,
big time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean. That's got to be the biggest clang I've ever seen from him. To try to play on and
without a doubt, he was 5 meters away from the goals.
Just take the kick, buddy. Like,
and just the look on his face, God, I just felt for him so much. He was just furious with himself, and unfortunately, the VFL media, shall we call them, has been having an absolute field day with it.
Yeah.
So I reckon Buddy's going to kick a bag this weekend, is my prediction. Shut everybody up.
He does love to shut people up. I like that. He does love to just, he gets propped up for it. He's got that Michael Jordan energy, which is like, I took it personally, that kind of vibe.
Big time. Yeah, I'm backing him. Yeah. I'm backing him to come back firing. So
you were mentioning that Nick, is it Del Santo? No?
No, his teammate, Lee Montagna.
Montagna. Yeah.
Can never say it. Basically calling for a Lance Franklin road show, shall we call it, for the last, what are we 14 games? What's left in the year? The home and away season. Yeah. To announce his retirement immediately, to, wait for it, to inject some positivity into our year and allow the fans a chance to celebrate him. So to basically roll him out like it's Johnny Farnham's farewell tour across the whole across the whole country.
One last time,
because that suits Lance Franklin's personality, doesn't it? Not.
When have you ever seen Lance Franklin try to make it about himself?
Seriously,
like he does. That is the worst idea.
Oh, it is. And look, we all. I think all of us here can appreciate this will be his last year. And to all the fans out there at the MCG or Marvel or wherever, Optus, wherever you may be, please give this guy a big cheer.
Yeah.
And do treat it like, this is his farewell tour, because it is.
It
but
is,
he doesn't
yeah.
need to come out. He doesn't need to come out and say it. So the fans just get around him, because honestly, what an absolute walk-up Hall of Famer, and it is the last probably few weeks of his career. So I don't think we need a retirement roadshow to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Look, he only needs one injury before it's just all over for his season as well, right? And his career at this point. So, yeah, let's not mess around here. Enjoy him while we have him. Like, yes, he's not himself, but you wouldn't
give him a break.
Yeah, you wouldn't be after like 36-year-olds and 19 seasons or whatever it freaking is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a different buddy, but he's still one of the better. He is the best modern forward that we've ever seen. He's already bought himself that place up in Queensland somewhere, probably the next house next to freaking Plugger, when those two are just going to go up to pasture and just never see the media ever again, right? Like that's the last time you're going to see those blokes ever.
100%. Yeah.
They love that. They're just like, and what do you think he came up to Sydney? He came to Sydney because he wanted to get out of the bubble. Right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Montagna, that is the worst idea, mate. That is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Well, pull your head in, mate. That is terrible. I mean, all right. So that's the injuries for this week. We got replacements to talk about. Millsy's out. I think we kind of ran over it. We suspect that probably Sheldrick's the first guy to kind of roll in there. He's been knocking on the door pretty heavy in the VFL, and maybe he does get that run on in the inside, and that'd be really good, because I think that's where he uses him best. Anyone else that we suspect might be coming in? I'm not really sure.
The good lad.
The good lad, yeah. He probably makes his way into that forward line, I'd say.
I'd say that seemed likely. Horse was sort of hinting at the fact that one of Hickey or the good lad might shoot up forward. So that would, I'm presuming he's okay. That was quite precautionary, I think, him missing that game against Freo. So I'm hopeful that he will come back in, because he is actually become very, very important as the good lad.
Yeah, despite all the fans just constantly freaking out about him. But, he does. Yeah. He has been, the last couple of weeks anyway, in particular, been quite good. So
Yeah. And we're coming up against a injury-decimated North Melbourne.
Yeah. Well, let's get straight into that then. Yeah. So as you said, I was like, oh my God, we're playing North Melbourne. I mean, I can't believe I'm actually having to look up North Melbourne stats. I didn't think that was one thing I was going to have to do this year. And I was looking through the stats. I'm sorry, friends, Swans fans out there. We're quite equal, which is pretty disappointing to see at this point of the season. But I mean, that's what we get. Is what you get.
Yeah.
So let me have a quick look. Yeah, look, disposals were just about equal. Kicks were a bit higher. Handballs about the same. We outdo it inside 50s, although we haven't been that good recently. Disposal efficiency is about the same. Free kicks doesn't matter. But like clearances are about the same. Stoppage clearances are about the same. Contested possessions are about the same. Uncontested possessions are about the same. So we're really not lighting up any particular spot in that. And then you mentioned it is 15th versus 14th. So maybe
14th versus 16th. Yeah.
Sorry,
and there's only
16th,
one win that separates us.
There you go.
And North are possibly getting a priority pick. So I don't really know how that works out. The percentage, we are separated on percentage, which I suppose is worth calling out, but we're a win the difference.
Yeah. I mean, for two totally different reasons, granted. But
totally
different reasons. But that's the reality of it. So we can either get angry at it, or we can look at it and try to figure it out and get this on the back
and win the
of
game.
Effort.
Win the game, right?
Win the game on the effort.
It's always fun, isn't it? Horse versus Clarko. This is a slightly different setting than usual, but I think they love coaching against each other.
Yeah, they do. I would love to see what the numbers are. I mean, granted, quite a few of those years were with the Hawks, and the Hawks were kind of quite good there. But
they had the dynasty, didn't they? There,
but dynasty.
So I was looking at North's list profile, and it's really similar to ours. Average age 23, same as ours, and we both sit around that sort of 70 games worth of experience. The one kind of, I suppose, positive thing from our side of things after we've been physically manhandled and bullied by bigger bodies in the last little while is that looks like it's a little bit more even. The sort of weight and height sort of profile is sort of similar. And the fact that they're so heavily undermanned, word is that they're possibly going to lose 6 players from their game on Sunday.
Wow, yeah, some big names there. We were looking at that earlier, weren't we?
Davis Uniacke being the
big name, yeah.
The big name.
Aiden Core is out,
yeah.
Tom Powell, Darcy Tucker, Lockie Young, Cam Zohar. Some of these names are decent
Zohar
players.
Well. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for us, but it's certainly not a game that we'll be taking for granted by any stretch. Yep. The last time we played them was in August of last year. We won by 38 points. If you recall, Nick Larkey kicked 7 goals against us. So that'll be something to think about.
Who gets Larkey?
Yeah.
Right.
So they do have power, in places. Like to think that, that we stand a reasonable chance, but I think all of us, are now taking each game as it comes and hoping for the best performance that we possibly can.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's not the gimme game that we were expecting it to be.
Percentage booster.
Yeah, especially with Millsy out and Logan out on top of all the injuries that we've already got. That's really taken us down another peg. So
we play well at Marvel though, don't we? It suits us.
Not the last game I watched there. Last game I watched there was against the Bulldogs, and it was like 17 behinds or something.
Oh my God! Let's not go there.
Knock on wood. That's not going to happen this week. I know. Yeah. All right, look, let's get into the last thing. I did a round 9 wrap-up with another podcast, Donnie's Disposal, which is a wonderful and really entertaining US-based podcaster. It's actually a video cast, so you got some video there so you can see my lovely face first thing in the morning when I'm trying to drink my coffee as we go. It was a lot of fun. He's a great guy. If anyone, go out there, it's on Spotify and everywhere else that you imagine it to be. He's also probably the number one guy out there about AFLW. And we've got some cool things I hope to get on with him as the AFLW season starts to get up and running. And in particular, the Swans team, the AFLW Swans team is looking like got some nice pieces of the puzzle there. So go out there, listen to him, support him, listen to his stuff. He's a really good guy. What else have you got on your side there, Jules?
Yeah, just the sad news, really, coming from the last week around Sam Reid. Reid injured himself in the final pre-season game in March, and I think they were kind of hopeful that he would be back for the second half of the year. But he's had to undergo another operation ending his season.
Oh my God. Is that it? Do you imagine that this is the last season? Yeah, I think so too.
So if that's the case, God, he's had a horror run of injuries and so much promise, and he was just so good for us in the back end of last year, particularly. So yeah, just some sort of sad news, I guess, in that regard, and we wish Sammy Reid well. But on to sort of lighter and more exciting things. Our game against North Melbourne this weekend marks the start of 2 rounds of Sir Doug Nicholls rounds, which is a highlight of the football calendar for everyone. It's just an amazing opportunity for all of us to get out there and celebrate, acknowledge and thank Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander players, volunteers, administrators, umpires, fans, past and present, and just celebrate, our wonderful football community. So really looking forward, to that over 2 rounds.
Yeah, perfectly well said. Can't agree more. I love it. I think it's the best thing in the calendar. That and Pride Round, I love the ideas of what the AFL does. So celebrate at will. I can't get enough of it. I really particularly like it when each of the teams change their name to be the area that they're from.
Yeah, we haven't done that. I hope we do.
No, not yet. Have we?
I hope we do. Yeah. It's such a cool thing. I noticed that 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 Freo and Melbourne particularly have done that. So hopefully, some of the Swans up there in Swans House can hear us, and next year let's get on that too.
The Gadigal Swans.
Oh, I love it.
I suggest that probably it's because Sydney is such a big area.
Could be.
Because there's just so many pieces, and there's a lot of different mobs around, so it might be hard and to be like, oh, we're only this one.
Well, like just Eastern Sydney, for example.
Yeah, exactly. How arrogant is that?
Yeah. No,
as I live in the eastern suburbs. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the only reason. But yeah, awesome. Can't say enough of it. Well, look, we may have gone over time. Again, thank you very, very much for listening in. It is a tough listen when the team loses. We know that. It's hard to get around them sometimes when you're just trying to get around yourself. We're trying to work out what's happening. But we do appreciate everyone listening. Look, we'll probably see you at the MCG. Look out for all the Swans fans. Cheer loud. It's still the season's ahead of us. We've still got some exciting things to happen ahead. So up until then, up the bloods. And can you Swannies?